Welcome to TNT Unpacked. We are your hosts, Justin Collymore and Rochelle Amore.
Hey.
Joining us today is Paul-Daniel Nahous, and we're going to be talking about the U.S. election as well as Trinidad politics.
And how the two are related.
Yes, so
welcome. For those who may not know who Paul-Daniel Nahous is, can you just give us a little bit of a background?
I've been involved in local politics for a few years now, and currently I am on the board of directors for the Hilary Foundation for Young Professionals.
What's that?
It is a political organization. If you want to break it down to brass tacks, it's the young professional arm of the PNM, People's National Movement.
So you're a PNMite? Is that what
I
you're
will
saying?
not ever identify by that term, but I'm a supporter of the People's National Movement.
Right. Okay.
In terms of the Hilary Foundation, there's a kind of big gap between quote-unquote adults in politics and people from the youth arm, the young professionals of Hilary. What we do is we have a forum where we can have debate, education, different things, programs pulled together. It's a good stepping stone for people who want to be involved in that level, mostly active in policy arrangements and so, designing policy. And the party has taken on, even though we're not an arm of the party, they have taken us on to a large degree. They allow us to have our elections in Baldersea House. They give us a lot of support from leadership. Leadership shows up to all our events. They have actually called upon us to present policy documents, and on behalf of the young professionals of the nation, you could say, we have presented several policy documents in public settings. As requested by the party, we have presented them documents so that they have a youth input on it.
Okay, so this is not an ad for the Hilary Foundation.
It is not. It is not.
I would just like to...
This year, I am not going up for re-election, so it is definitely not an ad for it. Or for my campaign, right? So.
Also, I'd just like to interject that Unpacked Media and TNT Unpacked are not at all affiliated with any political parties. This is just a coincidence.
Given the city, country, I'm surprised anyone's affiliated to anyone.
So there you go. You heard it from the horse's mouth.
So it's safe to say that you know a thing or two about politics.
I was an activist before, an advocate, so it wasn't through party politics I got involved. It was through non-partisan politics. And people in the party have, even made some comments about me, seen as call a spade a spade. I don't want to just say, all right, because I'm part of this party, everything to do is right or so. No, I've been in my share of scuffles in the party already.
All right.
We want to talk about Trump because this is such a fascinating topic. It's such a fascinating concept to have him maybe become president of the United States.
And I think it's important for our listeners, people who are living in the U.S., who are from the Caribbean, because we're kind of worried. We're hearing things about immigration, we're hearing things about work visas, and Trinidadians go constantly to the U.S. We're always in Miami, we're always in New York, such huge populations across the diaspora there. So how is that going to impact if, God forbid, Trump does win?
Well, taking a look at the policies, we look at the man afterwards, because that is a whole thing by itself. A lot of his policies, in terms of immigration, I don't find out outrageous, because you can say something on stage, but let's look at what they're presenting in terms of, how they want to move forward. Saying that they're going to deport all illegal immigrants, while that is, first of all, it is practically impossible to deport every illegal immigrant. However, strengthened immigration is not a bad thing. You're going to deport people who are in your country illegally, because I guarantee you a lot of the Trinidadians now, they're saying, Trump's just going to send them back and he shouldn't be sending back illegal immigrants, are the same ones that are getting on about Venezuelans coming here illegally. So there's a lot of hypocrisy in that.
Yeah.
As I said, I'm not going on what he says on stage, I'm going by what proposed plans from his camp are. And to deport illegal immigrants is not a bad thing. It's not a wrong thing.
Right.
I know what people are afraid of is that people who are legal there, and I can assure you, not even the president of the United States can move you from the country if you're a citizen of the United States.
Right.
Or if you're a resident, or if you have a
green
proper
card,
work visa.
You have a green card. There are lines to revoke your visa.
Right.
And in terms of a work visa, so you have to follow the procedure. And let's say if you have a green card, you have a U.S. passport, the president can't take a U.S. passport from a U.S. citizen. Remember, the president is not supreme there, the Constitution is.
Right. So all the Trinis or the current people living in these states who are worried once
who are
you
there
have
legally.
who are there legally, once you
legally.
have your papers, there's nothing to worry about. What about general traveling?
in terms of
like getting a visa and all that.
Yeah.
I'll ask you this: when has it not been difficult to get a U.S. visa? I mean, every president come and go. They'll give you a myriad of different reasons, but every president come and go. There's always the same difficulty in getting a U.S. visa, and I'll say to a large extent we have caused our own problems because we have a lot of Trinidadians, a lot of Guyanese, a lot of Jamaicans, a lot of West Indians are known for. Then we're known to go to the U.S., usually run some scam, and stay in the U.S. illegally. I mean, let's look at New York. New York is best example of that. The amount of illegal West Indians living there illegally over the last few decades. When are they not going to clamp down on immigration? In terms of getting a visa, I don't believe, based on what I'm seeing so far, that whether Trump or Hillary wins, it's going to be any easier or any more difficult to get a U.S. visa.
Yeah.
Once you satisfy the embassy that you have reason to be there, I mean, because look at it this way: U.S. cannot just lock out people traveling from around the world. Remember what rules in the US? Capitalism, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, capitalism rules there.
And Trump is a businessman.
He's a businessman. You have that money to shop in Miami, you can come in.
If you go to buy from Trump's clothing line, I'm very sure he's not going to mind at all.
So, based on what we were talking about before, do you think the whole theme of Trump is kind of like who you see on stage that's a lot scarier than what would actually be the reality of him running the country?
I think it's a stage play.
Yeah.
I think he's on stage saying these things because it's riling up the nation, and it's at first he was said to be an unpopular candidate, and then some would say an unreasonable candidate.
Yeah.
Then an unreliable candidate, and this or whatever they have to say about him. I had said at first I would go more along the lines of relevancy. He was an irrelevant candidate.
Right.
He had such a small pocket of support before, and people laughed at it. But when he said something outrageous, he got coverage.
Yeah.
Then he got a chance to speak, and what has kept him in the news being outrageous.
Yeah.
So if anyone doubts that this campaign or his stage persona is just playing out a way to keep relevant, to keep him in the news, then I'd ask something, why are we speaking about him right now if he was that unimpressive? Because I think he was that unimpressive. Just that we're speaking about him now. When there's a lull, what do you hear about politics? Next time there's a lull, you hear about some outrageous statement or tweet Trump has made.
Yeah.
So I think it's kept his face there. It's just kept him.
Right.
Trump has been loving Twitter.
So in terms of his actual policies, do you think there's anything he has planned that's actually outrageous or something that we should be worried about?
It's far too early to tell because he hasn't presented certain policies in a comprehensive manner.
Right.
And in truth, you really don't know what's going to be advanced until the president swears into office. Sometimes they don't know what they're going to do halfway into their term.
Yeah.
Right? But I don't think anything worrying so far.
Right.
People have what has been worrying is that the backlash in terms of Trump would say something, and then Aristotle said the common man is a fool, and we've been seeing that where Trump would make an outrageous statement, and what the common man will take and do with it is exact prejudice, some kind of discrimination against people in the nation.
Right. Yeah, I think that's the problem. Because we've been kind of looking at it as though it's so dangerous for him to become president. But in reality, we don't know what he's going to be like. But it's really his supporters and people who...
It's that you need to worry about. Because now they have this imaginary platform that they've made real. And I know that a lot of the Caribbean diaspora has been worried about, experiences of prejudice that they're going to face now with someone who's representing, in theory, all of these races.
Those people who are being extreme in the States and rallying around this, I say, imaginary platform. I would ask this as well. When have they not been like that? Now they just feel like they have been, they're justified in it. But the media, more than anything, is loving it because America, you would know in certain parts of America, are very racist.
Yeah.
And some of these actions are no more, no less than what they were doing before. But because it's a presidential campaign, what happens now? The media is
it gets exasperated.
Easy publicity.
Yeah.
Do you think the media in the US or in different parts of the world, when they have to report on it internationally, they usually they have to get content, make sure they get content for ratings. They have no problem with that this season at all.
Easy.
It's fair.
Yeah. So personally, do you think he's gonna win? Like, do you think that's
personally?
Or do you not want to comment on it?
No. It's interesting to look at because locally, I have been on the ground locally in different constituencies and in the media base for the night of the general elections. And I remember that there was a kind of a glitch in the system that night. Anything could happen, but based on poll predictions and how it's looking, It's a little too early to call.
Right.
Basio Pandey said 24 hours in politics is a long time, which is true.
Pandey.
Yeah, you have to quote him in Trinidad when you're talking about politics,
Oh
right?
my God, he's
Of course.
so
We
funny.
want to get him on the show.
We would love Basio Pandey if you were any of your camp or listening.
I could make contact with him, you know.
That would be amazing.
Maybe if you don't get him, you might get Michaela.
We want him.
I know everyone wants part of his problem in office at certain points, but let's not get into that.
Oh!
Yeah, I don't think he has galvanized his support he needs to win on election day. But as I said, anything can happen. And looking at his campaign, I mean, I know we'll get to Hilary later, but let's look at Trump's campaign in terms of how he's been winning the votes. The Democrats have it down packed in terms of the social media campaign and the ads and the media. They have it back.
Yeah.
The Republicans fell off the wagon when they didn't have that down packed, and they were losing on the ground movement. Trump has brought back the ground movement. And what showed me this, coincidentally, I was on a range. I was doing some training in Florida, behind the U.S. Air Force Base in southern Florida. I was there, and Trump had just come to the firing range. I'm telling myself, okay, it's a range for specific types of training. I was like, okay, Trump passing in. Seemed kind of. Oh, this was last year.
Right.
A little before this time last year, maybe around May, June. He came to shoot with the guys there,
Right.
and to talk with them, and to shake hands. And he didn't go on about any speeches about politics. He came there, he shot with them with rifles, and had a little talk with them about what they would like to see for America and the future, but a little bit of talk, and a lot of spending, if you want to say, quality time with them. So when I saw that, I was like, all right, this guy is hitting the ground in certain areas, especially Florida. Florida could go either way. He's been putting in the time to do the groundwork.
Yeah.
And as I said, groundwork, not as in he's having a convention and being on stage speaking or speaking at a conference. He was in a shooting range and with maybe 10 guys talking to them. That kind of politics is very difficult to pull off because it's very time consuming. We saw it when I was assisting Clarence Rambrat with his Miaro campaign. Clarence took over a year. Unfortunately, didn't win the campaign, but he took over a year head start, basically working the ground before he was even called the candidate. He went street to street to street.
Yeah.
Sometimes he plans to go 5 streets in a day, and somebody tells him to, oh, come, we just cook a roti or whatever. Well, guess what he's doing for the rest of the day? He's sitting down with 3 people, 4 people, eating roti and talking to grandma and talking to this one. And that takes up his day. But he said, you know what? It's the people. And if I have 4 more streets to make up. In the future, I'll have to get in somehow.
Yeah. So the way I was thinking of it in terms of political science, doing that down here, right, as opposed to doing it in the States, States just huge, gigantic population. So is the science behind it that if Trump talks to these 10 guys at a shooting range, that they kind of spread his influence through their networks?
Very correct, because one guy's going to go and tell his family this and that. Next time he goes to another range, Trump was down on our range the other day or so. And, oh, okay, cool. And it's going to spread. Same way it's going to spread. In the States, you have to be very strategic about where you do that to spread the right influence. And especially with Trump. Now, there's an advantage that Trump does not have. While a lot of people will be diehard Republican, just as they diehard Democrats, will support no matter what. Trump has pissed off the Republican base in terms of the base of influential people in the Republican Party.
Right.
And Ben Carson is not an influential person in the Republican Party. That's right. So certain small endorsements coming don't really do him much justice.
Right.
At the end of the day, he has an uphill battle. He was fighting uphill battle. He's still fighting it.
Yeah.
There are a lot of Republican sponsors that are upset that he did not take certain endorsements. Because you know how politics works. We give you something now, expect something in the future.
Right.
Trump has turned down a lot of endorsements. And that has had a lot of them frightened about, okay, well, if he wins, we already fought against him internally. He's denied our olive branch, a very prosperous orange branch. What's going to happen to us in terms of our tax breaks, our certain things
our
afterwards?
agenda.
What's going to happen to us afterwards?
Well, that's an interesting question because it goes back to Trump being a businessman and
he knows what they want.
He knows what they want because he's a businessman, but also he might not even need the endorsements because he's moving on like major money to begin with.
He's worth 4-point-something billion, I believe, as
Yeah.
it stands. However, Trump has had a lot of field ventures,
Yeah.
outstanding lawsuits. There's a lot about his background.
People say that, yeah.
You're familiar with Trump University? He set up a university, and I don't know if it was online or if it was a campus. I don't even know what it was. It looked like an online university to me, but he set up a university. People paid for courses, paid for things. Some people got degrees from it, not accredited really, useless degrees.
Shit.
And then at a point, they closed it down, and people had paid basically for their time at university, and
Yeah.
they got nothing from it. He has a lot of outstanding lawsuits from it. But, a businessman of his level, those kind of things happen. It's not right. It's not anything ethical, but at his level, it happens. He will be familiar with the people he's fighting with right now in terms of finances or so. He has a lot of people who genuinely believe in him and would fund super PACs for him. They would fund these political action committees. The money from super PAC would go to run his campaign.
Sorry, just for people who are not
Politically savvy.
politically.
We'll
What's a super PAC?
there'll be the PACs of PAC Political Action Committee. There'll be a group of people who sit down and decide, all right, well, we're going to form a political action committee. We are going to dedicate our support to a camp. And what the super PACs, when the term super PAC comes about when it's very influential, very powerful political action committees.
So you're talking about like top level businessmen or ministers or
correct.
something sitting down.
They sit down and they come into this thing, okay, we're going to do fundraisers. That's one big part of PACs and indeed super PACs, where we sit down and say, all right, well, we're going to try to raise $5 million for the Trump campaign, for the Hilary campaign, for the whoever campaign. We get the candidate to endorse us, and he said, all right, cool, you pledge support to me, I'll show up at the event, I'll do this, I'll talk, and the money from the fundraiser will go into an account that is used to fund the campaign.
There's a lot of money in politics.
Money and politics are intrinsically linked.
And I think it's a good time to ask about local politics and how
Yeah.
that works, because we're seeing this on such a magnified level with Trump being a businessman, and we're getting into it. In local politics, do you think it makes sense for like a businessman to go up for a seat the way Trump has done it?
Most businessmen have gone up for seats in Trinidad. I'd say a lot of our parliamentarians are businessmen. A lot of our ministers, past and present, are businessmen. Look at, for example, we could use Gerald Hadid last government. He was a minister, and he's the owner of Beacon Insurance and other business ventures. For example, Glenn Ramadas Singh.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I know. Trust me, you could not have said that loud enough. But I just use him as an example. While he is a vet, while he does not have the lowest price in Trinidad and Tobago, as he advertises, right? As he advertises, right? He runs a veterinary service, but what is that in essence? It's a business.
Isn't that like a conflict of interest though? Like to be a businessman and to be a leader of a country.
The conflict of interest when it comes to politics is being ethical and in politics.
That's fair. I'll take that. I want to just touch on something a bit sensitive real quick while we're on this topic.
Please don't tell me that I do Ian Allen.
No. As many of our listeners might have picked up, Paul-Daniel Nahous is Syrian.
Syrian. If you want to, the politically correct term is Syrian Lebanese.
Syrian Lebanese. And I mean, you come from a background of a business, headed family. I mean, have you found that that's helped you deal with politics? I mean, like we're saying, business and politics is often intertwined.
As much as a stereotypes come from somewhere. You're Syrian Lebanese. Well, in this country, they don't say Arab, they say Syrian. You're Syrian, you know about business. Well, I know about business. It's true, I come from a lineage of traders.
Right.
My grandfather came to Trinidad with nothing in his pocket, worked as a laborer to save up to get a bale of cloth, to start selling cloth, to then buy a cart, to then, then move up to until she had a factory with cloth. So, and indeed, most people of Syrian Lebanese descent in Trinidad and Tobago, they come from a lineage of business people. So I think that has helped me to open my eyes to certain aspects of politics. So I can see where the investment and payoff side is in terms of, someone would say, well, they put so much into this project or whatever. I was like, all right, well, no, that's not making sense if you put it on paper. Speaking as someone who knows a little bit about business, if not from myself, from people around me in my family. And so, no, that can never be that cost. Or that can never be that expense. Something has to be slipping off the side.
Yeah.
Right.
Same way someone sponsors the event It's like, yeah, but the amount of marketing in that event, that doesn't equate to how much they spend. There's a kickback happening somewhere. So I think that has given me an advantage to be able to see that in politics.
Interesting.
Good insight.
Good insight.
Yeah. One thing we were thinking about is, like when you look at Trump, it's kind of like obvious. Okay, yes, this is an act. This is kind of like him just trying to, gain popularity and get people to pay attention to him. Do you think that politicians down here have been emulating that?
And I wouldn't say, if you say emulating, not from Trump, I don't think so.
Right,
No, I
okay.
don't think there's any connection with that. Although, funny enough, I was looking at the Trump campaign. It was very similar to what Jack Warner was doing down here a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Where Jack Warner could have gone on a stage, admitted to defrauding the FIFA committee in selection of the president, basically admitted to crimes. And the crowd cheered.
Yeah.
He was making outrageous statements. You remember, there's a talk show host that he was in this conflict with, John Oliver.
Yes.
John Oliver.
Yeah.
John Oliver responded, and it was a...
And he made like he
response
bought airtime.
Yes.
To do a show.
That was extreme.
Yeah, but it, for better or worse, go through Trinidad, and after Trinidad, who was Uriah Butler? And ask him who is Jack Warner. I mean, ask a youth in Trinidad, what did Sir Ellis Clark accomplish? Who was Sir Ellis Clark? Some of them maybe will tell you if they remember from primary school. He was the first president. All right, well, what has Sir Ellis Clark done for the country, or what was his role? Ask them anything about Sir Ellis Clark history. They may not be able to tell you anything. Go and ask them, but why Jack Warner get fired, or why? And they will have 100 reasons they can give you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, controversy is popular, right?
It is.
That's Trinidadians are back on our list.
I feel like we don't have enough of like concrete information on like, all right, what did this person actually accomplish? I feel like we don't focus on those things so much.
Does it matter? Because we all know that the permanent secretaries are the ones running the country.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Well, I would say the permanent secretaries are the ones that, I wouldn't say run the country, but they can clog up things in the country. They're not able to set the policy, but they could deter the policy.
Right.
The problem is, a lot of it is the public service has to be reworked from the ground up. Here's the thing, politicians can be replaced tomorrow morning. You could replace any minister, you could replace any policy. But these things like the permanent secretary and those in the public sector,
your
in the
clerks,
system that
your service
yeah,
representatives.
those people who have a tenure there, because trust me, don't get fired from a government work. It's a safe work. That's the consensus.
true.
It's true.
No longer have an application in.
So yes, so you see what happens now.
OJT.
You see what happens is that you could change a politician tomorrow, you could change a policy tomorrow, but if the system cannot function under any circumstances and it's not allowing a policy to function, what do you have? You're spinning top and mud, you're going around in circles.
Yeah.
So basically, all in all, Trump is practically a trainee. He's just flashing. He just doing what he has to do.
Making a scene, making a bacchanal.
Making a bacchanal.
He's
Do
a
what he has to
bacchanal.
do. He's a bacchanal.
If you put a video with Marshall, that will sell out,
It needs that, Marshall.
I think
Marshall
so.
collaboration with
Someone-
Donald Trump.
Yeah, Marshall Montano, if you're listening, please make it happen.
This is how you get Soka to infiltrate the southern US.
So moving on to Hilary, who we've heard much less about.
Yeah. The main thing you hear about Hilary is this scandal with the emails,
Crooked
and that she
Hillary
can't be
and-
trusted, and she's a liar, and she's flip flopping. What do you think about all that?
Interestingly, there's a meme online that I love to look at when I'm talking about these things. It's a picture of Donald Trump and a picture of Hillary Clinton, and it says, "How would you like your racism? Blatant or systematic?" I think that says a lot about it. You see, the email scandal, people have swept that under the rug into that email scandal, and if they understood the implications of that email scandal, they would understand not only why some people don't trust her, they would understand too how she was a Secretary of State.
But what was the big deal about the emails? Like, she just sent some stuff from a personal account.
Come on, remember, she was Secretary of State. And Secretary of State essentially is like a Minister of Foreign Affairs,
Okay.
except with an elevated role. That's on the level of a national security minister, because remember, the US and their foreign policy and foreign affairs, it crosses over into issues of security
Right.
and just about everything internationally.
Yeah.
How she was as the Secretary of State, it was funny. It was commented on that day. She acted like a Republican overseas. She bullied a lot of countries in terms of in diplomatic relations. She was a lot less diplomatic than she is on US soil, which sometimes you have to be. And I don't say that's a bad thing, but it's a bad thing when you purport to be one way on soil and then you go over, you do something and you try to cover it up. I mean, look at Vladimir Putin, for example. And I am a fan of his administration in a lot of ways.
You sure you don't want
No. You see, that comes on the background. That comes on the background. That comes on the background of understanding Russian politics and Russian culture.
Okay. All right.
Russian culture is vastly different than Western culture.
Let's not jump to any conclusions, folks. We're not harboring any.
Russians.
You like the bareback pictures of him?
Of course.
Yeah. And manliness.
But that's what the Russian people as a whole, they want that.
Strong
They
leader.
want, their image of a leader must be charismatic in terms of he must embody strength by his actions, by his career. I mean, and he's an ex-KGB, ex-Russian Special Forces. That's the kind of man they want. They want a man who will be bareback on a horse.
That's the kind of man they want.
Yeah, that kind of man they want. They want Russian and want that kind of man who bareback on a horse. And even when he speaks in terms of saying he won't be bullied by the US at a point, and he grabbed the podium and shook the podium.
Yeah.
That's Russian culture, that they want a conservative leader who will be like that. So understanding that background, fine. Putin goes away and says something that is harsh. It was expected. The best example was a few years ago, a young Saudi prince, and this is not again saying that Saudis are suicide bombers and saying that they're terrorists, but I mean, this jackass prince decided to throw that prejudice on himself. Said that Russia will be, if they don't do X, Y, and Z, or they don't cease from X, Y, and Z, there will be so many bombings and that. Putin stood up on a stage and said that in a matter of a few minutes, we will reduce certain cities to dust. You will, you'll not be able to recognize a city once stood there.
Yeah.
And the Saudi prince quickly shut his ass. I mean, there was no comment after that. So there's
Putin comes to play ball.
Yeah, you can't sit down and your negotiations have to be to the point, right?
Right.
Now, when Hilary comes at home and she, acts like the classic Democrat with discussion and dialogue and this, but she goes away and tries to bully nations. It's different.
Yeah.
If we heard, Lord forbid, John McCain was Secretary of State, and McCain went away and bullied people, well, what did you expect, right?
Trump does it. We knew that was coming.
Trump comes and eyes on someone's wife overseas. What do you expect, right?
Yeah.
So the two-facedness was what a lot of people didn't like to understand the issues. And in terms of the emails now, she used her personal email server to send Secretary of State emails, State Department emails.
Is that such a bad thing? I use my personal email for business.
Yeah, but I'm very sure your business doesn't include things like the Benghazi terrorist, report on the Benghazi terrorist attack, and things that are top secret, things that are marked as classified. There's no monitoring the state could have done in terms of at the time. I say that, all right, if it passed through State Department email, she couldn't have duplicated it. She couldn't have sent copies. They would have been able to track everything. The people are working on her personal server. What could they have funneled out?
Right.
Yeah. And a lot of the emails that were supposed to be marked as classified weren't. And the State Department retroactively, they marked certain things classified. Hilary saying she didn't understand. And at that point, excuses like she didn't understand what the C next to something meant as classified. Now, her defense says she's not a tech-savvy person.
Right.
I can understand that to an extent, but I will take that a grain of salt because you're the Secretary of State. I think you should know that what the marking for classified is.
Yeah. Maybe just a little bit.
And have or ask somebody, hey, well, what does this mean?
Yeah.
There's a C by certain
Don't
emails.
you have like a million protocol officers at your disposal?
Which is the issue. She by having her private server, I wouldn't even say bypass. She breached protocols and she breached the procedures of the U.S. State Department.
Right.
At that level, you're not supposed to be breaching procedures at that level.
Why did she do that? Like, why did that end up happening in the first place?
That's a golden question here because there are also 17,000 plus emails that her legal team did not hand over to the State Department from her private servers. Now, while maybe some they have reason not to hand over, it seemed like they did not cooperate to the fullest extent with the State Department and with the FBI investigators on the issue.
Right.
Yeah, FBI has said they did not find enough that they will be able to prosecute, or they are going to drop prosecution. They're not going to prosecute her for it. However, a lot of questions are unanswered.
Yeah.
And some of these questions we have to recognize will never be answered, and that's kind of scary for someone who wants to become president that they're showing that behavior. I don't like to go into conspiracy theories because there were theories because people that were linked to these things have been killed recently in last year.
Really?
I don't like to go into conspiracy theories, but just that is cause for concern when people linked to these things have been dropping.
So, in terms of what Hillary's presidency might mean for the Caribbean, I get the idea that perhaps we might be better off with Trump.
when Sanders was going up for Canada, when he offered himself for candidacy and he had to fight the internals, what Sanders said was that I'm not fighting Hilary, I'm fighting her sponsors.
Right.
And that's the thing I find really scary about Hilary. Even the issues with the emails or so, I don't find it as scary as the amount of companies she has sponsoring her.
Yeah, I saw something the other day about how if you're looking for Hilary's groundwork, she's in the US's richest enclaves. She's only doing groundwork in the wealthiest places.
And she's using her ground troops to go into the places that Trump would have gone into himself. What's disturbing about her campaign is that the amount of sponsors, especially known oil companies that are sponsoring her and have been pumping money into her campaign. People say Trump will start a war overseas, which is arguably Republican tradition. But companies like Halliburton and other companies who are big players in the oil industry, what benefits them? If there's a war, the price of oil goes up. So watching different oil companies sponsor her and different arms manufacturing companies jump and say, well, different, or say not arms manufacturing as much as, let's say, security contractors and so, people who have a stake in the production of war materials, watching them jump and support her kind of raises some red flags, isn't it? I mean,
Trump is a lot of buck, but I don't, like you said, we haven't seen his actual policies yet. Yeah. And the advantage with him, of course, from this conversation is that he doesn't need that sponsorship and endorsement, and he's turned people down. I
think that's gotten a lot of people on Capitol Hill afraid of him. There's a type of corruption going on there that has been prevalent for a long time, and they try and offer him, and he says no.
Yeah.
That puts them in. Holy shit! If he gets elected, what's going to happen to us?
Right.
And we're not going to have a president with shaking hands with to cover us.
The big plot twist there is that Trump might be the good guy.
I wouldn't say the good guy, but maybe the better guy. I mean,
right.
we're kind of going with a... It's kind of like the devil you don't know and the devil you know.
Right.
Which, funny enough, people think they know Hillary is... Okay, well, if you ask people, okay, what do you know of Hillary Clinton?
Yeah.
Most people will say something about Bill Clinton. We're not talking about Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
I think that the our Trump administration, now, again, it's about who he puts there as well. Who will he put as Secretary of State? Who will he put as Secretary of Defense? I mean, that's going to determine a lot of it. I think Trump would be a more hands-on president, for better or worse. But in any case, I said, I agree with you saying, it's more bark than bite. He's saying what he has to say now to be able to
win.
Make news. To
make
be
news,
honest. If Trump stops tomorrow morning, or right now he stops making outrageous tweets, firing this one, saying this, what would happen? He wouldn't be in news until election day. He's keeping himself in the media. I think that's his plan. However, now there is a turnaround that if his campaign goes this way, he might have a chance at winning. Right now, states like Ohio and Florida, so still in the swing status, those are states you need to win. To
swing states meaning they can go either way.
Yep, you have to be able to win those states, and Florida is not looking good. What he could do, and what I suspect his plan is, if not, he's kind of screwed, is what I would advise him if I was
Trump, if you're listening.
Trump, if actually, it might be better to be on Hillary's campaign. They might sign a check to me now. It'd be more lucrative. In any case, the Trump campaign, if at this point he has people on his behalf, or he starts now articulating his policies in a sensible manner, people may listen, and it may bring some people who weren't listening before to him, because if I'm correct, I think it was his daughter last time that was speaking.
Yeah, and so eloquent.
And when I saw that, I was like, okay, is this the turning point now? Is this now where he has people captivated? So now let's start to talk some sense. I think he's trying to capture media support, and Hillary on the other end of it now, she's over puffed in a lot of speeches. She's just made up in these speeches. She says it's a lot of rhetoric. It's a lot of Democratic rhetoric too. She's not a Barack Obama.
Like many Caribbean people, we do have an interest in this. We're talking about U.S. politics. I personally, two of my sisters are American. They live in Houston, and so I've been kind of following it because
Houston,
these things, H-Town.
Hillary could never have a Barack Obama image,
right?
Because she is not like that. She screams, if you want to say, I hate this term, but white privilege. She screams that term.
She's inauthentic too by trying to be something else. And
that
I
she's
think
not,
people pick up on that. She's inauthentic. I don't want an inauthentic president
I think
running the
George
country.
Bush arguably stupid, was more down to earth. George Bush was more down to earth than Hillary Clinton.
He was, because you know George was fucking high half the time. Like, you knew that, and that was okay.
And he was cool with it too.
He was cool with it too, right?
Yeah, at least he didn't pretend to be something
exactly.
outside of what he was.
And that's what worries me.
Bush accepted himself.
Correct.
He did. But in terms of international relations, that's worrying, because not only do you have someone who's out of touch and someone who has agendas, corporate agendas, but you also have someone who is not, almost, you can't communicate, you can't reach them, they're unreachable.
Right.
And from a smaller, low income region like the Caribbean, that might be a problem in terms of policy.
But in spite of all of this, it looks like she could easily become the president.
Yeah.
By default.
By default, correct.
So yeah, this is what
I think Obama laid a lot of groundwork.
Yeah.
But it's a matter of respect too. Ask 100 Americans, what do you respect Hillary Clinton for? More than half of them would say Bill.
Right.
Others would turn around and say, well, she's a Democratic leader. They're not going to get any defense.
Yeah, this is what I was thinking, we know Donald Trump's, we see his strategies at play, but with Hillary, I feel like...
Bring it back to John McCain.
Right, yeah.
Let me make this disclaimer clear. I was never a supporter of John McCain's candidacy. I did not think he would make a good pick for president. I don't know how they put him to fight that campaign at a time when he was facing Barack Obama. While I don't think John McCain would have made a competent president, you know about his history in the army, right?
Yeah.
And
he was a prisoner of war.
He was a prisoner of war. He can't raise his arms past his shoulder level.
Really?
He can't, because of injuries he sustained as a prisoner of war. And
for those who don't know, who is John McCain?
John McCain is the former Republican candidate that lost the presidential battle to Barack Obama.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. John McCain, now, he can't raise his arms past that level because of injuries in a prisoner of war camp. He's an officer, and for those who don't know, an officer is a high rank in the military as opposed to a soldier. That's where you get your lieutenants, your captains, your colonels, as opposed to a soldier, private, corporal, sergeant, so on. He was actually offered a release, and he refused to be released until the soldiers were released. The soldiers in his unit were released. So he stayed voluntarily in the prisoner of war camp until his men would come out. They cut a deal for his men to come out with him.
Wow.
So based on that, I give him full respect.
Yeah.
There's something you could point to with each president, actually. You could point at him of respect, even if, as like, for example, I didn't like all of Obama's policies, but I point to respect. He could have been down to earth. He could have connected with people. Barack Obama overseas too, he has always done his best to build relations and show respect. Funny enough, I think he would have made a better Secretary of State. He would have made an excellent Secretary of State, actually. Certain leaders, not to play with. There's certain leaders that have attributes, as I said, we go to Russia, Putin. Yeah. Don't mess with him. He's going to be, don't try and push his stance.
He crazy.
Yep, Reagan. Reagan would be strong in his stance. You have Obama's charisma. You have things of former US presidents you could always point to that as a highlight. Hillary Clinton's highlight is billing her sponsors.
Hillary's highlight is standing by her mom when he railed on her dread in front of everybody.
That was pretty dread.
I don't advocate anyone seeing a relationship with thank you.
I one time.
Yeah, no, I advise any women, you get one,
that's it.
Boss it. That's the line to draw.
The point is, that's Hillary's only really, save it, thing that you could,
grace,
her saving grace. But it's not enough to be president.
Everything about us screams corporate sponsorship, which is funny enough, that's usually what you get from a Republican candidate.
Yes.
I found the Republicans in the last couple elections, for example, with Mitt Romney, right? Now, I had supported Mitt Romney's campaign. And he made some jackass comments. However, in terms of economics and stuff, he knew what he was doing. And he seemed a lot more sane than a lot of the other candidates. But again, this image of corporate sponsorship doesn't band well.
Trump should actually be the Democratic candidate at this point.
Yeah, I think he would serve better in terms of the sponsorship issue.
I actually read that Trump is actually a Democrat.
I've read something like that too.
Well, let me put it this way: that look at what's going on with Trump. He's going to, and again, Trump is dominating this conversation, if you realize. In terms of a Republican candidate, look how the Republicans have resisted him. And I'm talking about the Republicans who have a certain interest have resisted him. That says something.
Yeah.
Funny, I saw a poster, an online poster, of someone ripping off the Republican sticker from his thing and it's marked independent under it. Because it seems like he's used the Republican Party to try and grab their base and run an independent campaign.
Yeah. And it's funny because on the surface we think, he's losing Republican support because of all the outrageous remarks and, borderline racist movements that he's created. But when we look a little deeper, it's really, in terms of power and how he's resisted corporate powers and interest and how he's basically, like you're saying.
It's a lot of power to resist too.
Yeah.
You have billions of dollars being thrown, telling you, well, hey, what, we're going to throw $100 million US into your campaign, and there's $20 million US for you.
Wow.
Just hold on to it.
Just for you.
Just for you. Just put it aside.
Can
pack
I
it
run
aside.
for president?
I don't know how outrageous are your statements.
I could get pretty
No,
wild.
you see, well, you have to have a Republican. You can't go any Democrat. You wouldn't take a horn from your man. So you can't
Oh,
That's true.
that's fair. All right. So, I mean, like Justin said, big plot twist here today on TNT
Yes.
Unpacked.
So we're all pro-Trump.
Oh, my God.
Well,
I'm kidding.
We're apolitical.
We're apolitical.
You know, if you say that, you automatically, disqualify us from Hillary's sponsorship, right?
Yeah, that's true.
shit,
Let's
true,
leave
true.
ourselves
Right,
open.
right.
Let's leave ourselves open.
I mean, I was gonna ask if what can Trinidad learn from looking at the U.S. This particular presidential race.
Trinidad could learn this. We mind our own damn business and fix our state before looking elsewhere.
That is a good point. On that note, Paul, thank you very much.
Wait. If you had to pick, right? I know we said Jack one is a lot like Trump, but in terms of like sitting politicians, who's the Hillary and who's the Trump?
Give me a minute. That's a
nice question.
very, very good question. In Trinidad, Hillary and Trump. In a weird way, Kamala compares a lot to Hillary.
I was thinking that.
Really?
Yeah, Kamala
That's what came to
Prasad-Bissessar, I
mind.
think she compares a lot. In the Kamala Prasad-Bissessar campaign and administration, all she had, even now, image. Dig deep into the image and see what's behind the scenes. Behind the scenes, she wasn't what she purported herself to be. She wasn't what she stood up on stage and said.
Does it not make her more like Trump?
No, because she didn't make outrageous statements. She made statements that made you confident in her. Actually, more so than Hillary even. That made
Yes,
you confident
that's
that she was
true.
she was the pick, she was honest, she was this.
That's true.
She hit her sponsors. In terms of Trump, I don't think we have any Trump characters here. I don't think he's a unique character.
He's so unique.
Maybe if Trump screws up in about 3 years,
Well,
he'll be
no.
a Jack Warner. If you can find stuff on Trump, he'll be more like a Jack Warner, yeah.
All right, so
All right, that's it. Well,
Yeah.
thank you very much. You provided a ton of insight. I feel like we both know, and whoever's listening knows a lot more about what's going on.
all three people.
All three people.
Hey, shout out Adam in Toronto. What up, boo?
How about Trinidad? And when they go Canada, it was Toronto. And when they go to the States, it was New York.
I know, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and London. All my London peeps.
And yeah, England, it was good. I mean, it's just
Mark in
Like, we have fancy
London.
here.
Boo, can't wait to see you. Love you. I'm done.
Okay. She.